Hello everyone and welcome to the third video podcast coming from figuredrawingonline.com. In this episode we will be focusing on the upper leg. So essentially what we can do is just to look at the large mass and first of all I'm going to put in just an indication of where the pelvis is. Now that will give us a rough estimation of the tilt of the body and of its position. I'm not worried at this stage about any details or any muscular clues or landmarks. All I'm concentrating on is simplifying the complex shapes into simple geometric shapes that I can pin down. So in this episode we're talking about the upper leg, and the simplest way how we can visualize the upper leg is to draw it as a cylinder, and the cylinder itself is fairly easy to put in perspective. Give it a basic shape. I'm going to put in just this ball for the knee, just for the position, and I will put in another cylinder here for the other leg. Actually, I might as well just do it in placing it in perspective. The next piece here that I'm going to put in is just indicate the knee, and then I will just we'll put in another cylinder just to indicate the lower leg. On this leg here I'll put in another cylinder again, just to indicate where the lower leg is. In this short episode I'm not going to talk about the bones that are quite necessary to know, at least for the beginners, to have a vague idea of how they look and where they position, because the bones don't change much. They are rigid structure. They give us very good clues and landmarks. For those details, as well as the position and the description of muscles, you will need to head over to the website of www.figuredrawingonline.com. This is just a podcast, and so I'm not going to spend time on the description and the function of bones and the muscles. So essentially, with the upper leg, it's often the case to think of it as a cylinder that gives us a simplified shape that we can deal with. We can mark it in. I'll just indicate quickly here. In the back we have the sacral triangle somewhere there, and from then on the spine goes up. Now I'll just put in roughly a wake position for the rib cage, and then draw the muscles over it. So really all I'm doing is building this body out of simple shapes, because those are the ones that we can deal with. We can decide their position. We We can decide on their size, on proportional relationship with other parts of the body, and also in these episodes for the podcast, it is important to remember that the drawings that are presented to you are studies. They are not final, finished and polished drawings ready to be hung. So it's important to allow for the messiness. So that's as far as we could go without going into any further details that would clarify more what is happening in the drawing. Nevertheless, in terms of shading, we might touch up just a little bit on the dominant plane breaks. Now, the plane breaks run alongside the body and give us a rhythm to the drawing, and the easiest way to visualize it pretty much is we need to talk a little bit about the light. And that is when you draw from a model, for example, in this photograph, you can see that there's way too many lights in the studio. There's a light coming from the right, from the left, from above. There's a reflected light from below, and therefore all the shapes inside of the body become very confused. Now, we're looking at the photograph, so we kind of, we recognize that it's a human body, that whereabouts it is. But in terms of translating, whether you're drawing from a photograph or from a live model, to translate the reality onto the 2D paper, you actually need to create your own light, because light creates the form, but also it can destroy it. So traditionally, what happens is you have a dominant light coming from the left and above, and a reflected light coming from below and the right. So what happens is what is turned away from the light is shaded, and what faces the light is lit. Now, it will be easier to see on an example of a ball. What happens is, and you can see that this is just very, very, very quick sketching, very rough. What happens is where the light meets the shade, that's where the contrast is the greatest. So that is a very, very fast, of course there's much more to it, but that is the very, very fast lowdown on shading. Now, why is it this is important? Because when you do your drawing, you will need to deal with the plane breaks, and essentially if we light this body from the left, everything that is turned away from the light will be in the shade. So this part, and then this part of the leg, and you can see that only by throwing this very simple shading already gives us a feel of a three-dimensional object on our drawing pad. And that's essentially what we do. We draw a representation of the reality. We don't copy the reality. It's our personal statement. There you go. So, without going into the details, and of course there's the feet down there. Without going into more details about the bones and the muscular structures, the very basics that you need to think about is to simplify large masses into a smaller geometric shapes in order to in order to break them down into more manageable structures that you can then indicate them on the paper. If you need more details, if you would like to learn more, you will need to head over to www.figuredrawingonline.com. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back for the next episode on the knee.